Folks, welcome to a Christmas special of Dow's Weekly Digest. You know, it's a season of stories. So I've got a couple stories to share with you. Feliz Navidad. In Panama, that story season starts December the 8th. December 8th nationally is Mother's Day. And then it goes all the way, the Christmas season does, to January 6th. Now, January 6th, that day is called the King's Day. You see, that's the day that they celebrate the wise men visiting the Christ child. And on that day in Panama, the child can take some grass and they'll put that under their bed. You see, that grass is for the camels of the wise men. In the morning, the grass will be gone. They'll have a gift like the wise men brought the presents, the gifts that were mentioned in the Bible and in Matthew. You know, sometimes the best present can't be seen. I'm speaking here, folks, of protection. Protection for your family in the form of life insurance. Sometimes the best gift cannot be seen. In Matthew, in the book of the Bible, it mentions the wise men. And they were bearing gifts. And they mention 3 gifts, don't they? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. These wise men were following a star. What happens when you follow that star and it leads you to a stable? How is your conduct affected by the outcome of your expectations? Can you imagine the disappointment that the Magi, these wise men, must have felt when they were following that star? They even went to King Herod himself and inquired there. And they end up in the little town of Bethlehem, in a stable. You know, every one of us have had times in our life when we have followed a star. You know, everything looked like it was just right in place, just the way it should be. And then at the end, we ended up in the stable. In the stable. The beautiful part of the Christmas story of the wise men is what they do when they come to the stable. Now, I believe that all wise men, including your internal wholesaler, our internal wholesaler, part of the financial markets family, have done 3 things when they come upon a stable. They, number 1, they look for the good. They look for the good. And in doing so, they find God. They don't panic about the problem. They look at the problem as opportunity, and they hold steady. They kind of ask themselves, in this situation, where in the stable of life is God? Number 1. Number 2, when the wise men find a stable, they offer their very best. They get up in the morning, a wise person does, they look in that mirror and they say, I am going to be giving my very best in the situation that I'm in. And they give their very best, and you know what? Then some more. Then some more after that. The wise men when they find the stable. Number 3, when the wise men find a stable, they're open to and they change their direction if necessary. You know, the wise men found at the stable the baby, the Christ child, and they changed their direction with love and adoration for that Christ child. Not to protect themselves, but to protect that Holy Family. So when we come to the stables of life, let us be wise and remember to look for the good, to bring your very best, and then some, and allow Him to change the direction of our lives. Remembering this, maybe, folks, indeed, God's plan for you is great, is great. Did you hear me say that your internal wholesaler He's like those wise men. Let me share with you on maybe 3 of them here in the time that we have. Dina Borderwick, Tara Sewell, and Jason Kerner. The wise men were very learned. They were like university professors back then, particularly in astronomy. Your internal wholesaler is very learned. They are constantly keeping up on industry training techniques, wherever they may be, and the experience that they bring with them. From the insurance sales itself, being on the front lines, just like you, to elder care, to a medical background, to hospice care, to grief care, all of that encompassing on how they can give their very best and then some. They are professionals in all definitions that you find in the good old Webster Dictionary. They focus folks on the positive, but they're able to have boundaries set. And believe me, they can be assertive when need to be. And they look for ways to have fun. Let me throw out some examples here for you, folks. One was an all-state basketball player here in our state. Another one listens to the oldies while the other one likes to listen to the Rolling Stones. And binge watching, which seems to be the current thing with the environment that we're in. One loves to watch Heartland, the horses, taking care of the horses, and the training of the horses. Another one, The Big Bang Theory. Probably rerun after rerun after rerun. Another one, maybe with that medical background, it's Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy. Look at all those differences there. On the question, what do they love about the insurance industry? One says, every day brings opportunity. Every day brings to them opportunity to make a difference. To make a difference. It's powerful. Another one, helping others care for their loved ones. You don't buy insurance for yourself, you buy it for your loved ones. And another one, knowing that we played a small part in easing some of the fears of that person's financial future. Wise men. Yes, Dina, Jason, and Tara, they're doing their very best and then some for you. Even if that star would lead you to a stable. Now, my last story here, folks, is one that I first heard on the radio in the car in 1965. 1965. Some of you weren't even born, but in 1965, in my little black Mustang, I heard this story. It's kind of a modern parable, if you will, on the Christmas story. And it's entitled, The Man and the Birds. The Man and the Birds. This man, this gentleman I'm going to tell you about, now he wasn't a Scrooge. He was a very decent man. He loved his family, took care of his family, and with his business handlings, he did the proper thing at the proper time. However, he didn't believe in that incarnation thing about Jesus. He just didn't. Around this time every Christmas, he kind of got uneasy because you see, the family would go to the Christmas Eve service. And he told his wife, he said, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go to church at Christmas Eve service with you tonight. He says, I would feel like a hypocrite. I don't believe in that Jesus thing. I don't believe that God became a man and came down to earth. And again, I would think I'd just be a hypocrite. And so I'm not going to go. But I'm going to stay up. When you get back from the Christmas Eve service, I will be here. They said, well, we'll say a prayer for you. Now, shortly after the family goes down the driveway from the farm, it starts to snow. Midwestern snow. So it started getting a little heavier, and then the wind started to blow. So he saw this, and he thought, well, they took the pickup, and so they'll be okay. So he settles into his nice chair next to the fireplace. And pretty soon, he's sitting there, and he hears, and pretty soon, he hears some more. He thinks, what the heck is that against the house? So he sticks his head out the door and he looks out. And to his amazement, he sees a whole flock of birds. You see, folks, these birds were flying into the picture window. The light from where he was by the fireplace and the light in the house was drawing the birds in their confusion in the blizzard right against the picture window. And so those little birds were right there, kind of confused, right there. And he goes to try to shoo them, and they just stay right there. He thinks, well, I need to do something. So he goes back in the house. He thinks right away. He says, we've got the barn where the kid's pony is. I will open up the barn. So he puts on his hat. He gets his coat on, gets his boots going. He goes on out, goes through the snow, and the snow is getting deeper and deeper. Opens up the barn door, turns on the light, stands back and says, okay, now they'll go to this light. To his amazement, nothing happens. These little birds, they just stayed right on the snow, almost like they were froze there. So he gets thinking, well, maybe if I get behind them and shoo them, they will then go towards the light. He gets behind the birds. He starts to shoo them. They start flying. They start running, but they don't go towards the barn. They go everywhere but the barn. So he gets rethinking, what can I do to save these little birds? He thinks, well, maybe food will do it. So he goes into the house and he gets some breadcrumbs. And when he gets the breadcrumbs, he comes out and he starts to make a trail, right from where kind of the most of them are, all the way to the barn. That's got to work. Folks, they just look at that. They don't even eat it. They're shivering. They have no intention of eating any of those frozen breadcrumbs. He doesn't know what he's going to do. Of these poor little weak birds, how could he help them? And then all of a sudden, in his analytical mind, it hit him. You know, if I became a bird, then they wouldn't be afraid of me. They would understand me. You see, when he was trying to move them and even give them help, it was like he was a monster to them. They were fearful of him. They didn't understand what he was trying to do for them. And again, his thought was, you know, if I became one of them, if I became a small bird, I could speak to them. Then they would see and they would come to understand that there is safety and I can take them to safety. About that time, at the church service where the family was at, they were lighting the candles as they were holding them, and they were singing the last hymn, that being Silent Night. And then they rang the church bells. And even though the church was away in that strong winter wind, he could hear the church bells. And folks, when he heard those church bells ringing, then all of a sudden he realized the true Christmas story and why Jesus needed to be Emmanuel, God with us, in order to lead us to safety. And at that point, the man got on his knees. Folks, I hope you enjoyed that modern parable of the Christmas story. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to me that I was able to share that with you today. You know, we here at Financial Markets, we wish to wish you a very Merry Christmas, a joyful Merry Christmas with your family, whether they be with you or they not be with you. And may the peace of God, that peace that passes all human understanding, that indeed that be with you and your family. And again from us, Merry Christmas.